Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol. Now the M2 Competition and the M2 CS have appeared on the channel a couple of times, but I've only ever driven them on a motor circuit. They're a car that's impressed me a great deal, but I still feel like there's more I need to learn about the car. So I got in touch with my friends at BMW and said, is there any chance that I can have an M2 CS for a week to really get to grips with it and find out what it's like? Could I really daily an M2 CS? Now, before I show you around the beautiful car parked behind me, I want to say a massive thank you to BOTB for sponsoring this video. BOTB have supported me for the last couple of years and they help make videos like this possible. So a massive thank you to those guys. But BOTB are the dream car competition company who now give away 2 cars every week in their dream car and midweek car competitions. And they're now adding £50,000 of cash to every single car in their dream car competition. Now, you could win an M2 Competition along with £50,000 of cash in the boot for just £2.30. That's a £100,000 prize. You only have to be 17 or over to enter, and they have 150 other cars to play for, including 20 BMWs, and that includes the new M3, which, let's face it, looks incredible. There are links in the description below and also in the pinned comment, and the competition closes on midnight on Sunday. So head on over to BOTB, have a bit of a play, and you never know, you too could be driving an M2 as well. But let me show you around this stunning car behind me, because it really is very, very special. If ever there was a car that had presence, this is it for me. Now, I've put a few pictures of this on my Instagram feed, and by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, please head on over to Instagram and give me a follow. I'm only 500 followers short of the magic 10,000 followers that allows me to swipe up and link to YouTube videos instead of writing link in bio. So that would be just an awesome achievement. But I did put some pictures of this car, and so many people went, the front end of that car, it just looks so mean and so aggressive, and I couldn't agree more. I think the front end styling is absolutely amazing, and this bonnet, firstly, it looks great. It's got these lovely intakes or vents in it, but if I just pop the bonnet, it's carbon fibre. And if you open the bonnet, you would end up being the world's biggest carbon fibre bore, because you've got this beautiful exposed weave carbon fibre underneath. It is beautiful. I'll talk more about this power plant as we're driving along. We've got this lovely carbon fibre strengthening beam here. It's just stunning, stunning thing. And the bonnet, I think if it didn't have those retaining struts on, probably weighs hardly anything. And then the front end, I think just the grills are really lovely, and then you've got this beautiful exposed carbon fibre splitter with those little winglets on the end. The front end of the car just nails it for me, and it kind of starts the story around the edge of the car. It's just wider and meaner even than an M2 Competition. But the next thing we need to talk about, because this car for me does have a few major issues, and I think the next thing to talk about is wheels, tyres and brakes. Yes. So this press car has the optional, and it says £6,250 option, carbon ceramic brake pack. And that's a lot of money, but let's not forget that this car is aimed at going really fast around a circuit. But it's an expensive car anyway, and when you option it with the ceramic brakes, it takes it even higher in spec. I'll keep you holding on and guessing what the value or the on-the-road price of this car is. But yeah, those brakes. Now, I always find ceramic brakes an interesting one. If you're going to track your car a lot, then I can see why people would want to spec ceramic brakes for the extra braking performance and extra braking durability. However, if you're buying this car to use on the public highway, really, honestly, the standard steel brakes that would come on this car would stop you fast enough and would give you the braking performance that you need. So I think there is an element on some cars, ceramic brakes being a bit of bragging rights. The other option, or the benefit they do give you though, is ceramic brakes don't create as much brake dust, so you do keep cleaner wheels and cleaner cars, and it's a very expensive thing to get cleaner wheels, but that might be another reason why you go for ceramic brakes. The other thing that this car is shod with one of the best track day tyres you can buy, the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2. I'm not so sure that's the best tyre for me to have this week coming, because I know the weather's not going to be great. We're expecting heavy rain and the temperatures are quite cold. So I would much rather this car be sat on a set of all season or winter tyres, but I'm not going to moan too much, because when I did the Giulia Quadrifoglio video recently, and that was on Pirelli P0s, I had lots and lots of problems because they're basically the wrong tyre at the wrong time of year. So if you were going to daily one of these, I think a set of winter wheels and tyres with an all-season or winter tyre option would probably be a cunning plan. These things on a nice, warm, sunny day would be epic. Now, one of the things as I've walked down the side of the car, which you instantly are drawn to, is this beautiful carbon roof with the exposed weave. And obviously that's going to do lovely things like lowering centre of gravity, but it does look amazing. Then you come round the back, you've got this little carbon lip spoiler, quad exhaust, lovely exposed carbon diffuser. It just looks mega, really, really mega. and it's funny, I know lots of people with M2s and M2 comps, and I've never really got it, but never really lusted after one. That is until I spent about an hour with this car, and now I really, really want one. Maybe not a CS, my budget doesn't stretch that far, but they're a handsome looking car, and this thing's got such wide hips and such an aggressive stance. I think it looks absolutely excellent, but the inside of this car is really very special. Really very special. I love it in here. I'm going to get that right out of the way. I do love it in here. It has a very special feeling. These seats just look utterly epic, and there's lots of like really high-end materials. If it's not leather, it's Alcantara, and if it's not Alcantara, it's carbon fibre. It is really beautiful. However, the M2 CS I drove on track was a manual, and this has the DCT box. Now that's a £2,645 option, and when I wanted to get one of these for a week, I really, hand on heart, really wanted to live with the manual, because my gut feel says, having only driven the manual for a short period of time, that would be the one to go for me. But I think probably living with the car over the next week, I think maybe the DCT. So one of the questions I'm going to ask over this week's worth of driving is how I warm to the DCT, and whether I think it's worth that extra amount of money. Because with the carbon ceramic brakes and DCT, and then the only other two options that this car has, it's got a driver assist camera, that's £330, and then electric front seats, that's £650. Now, if you add all of that up, are you ready for this? That means the on-the-road price of the car that we're sat in is £83,260. 83 grand. Now, we really do need to ask the question, is the CS that much better, 25 grand or more better than the M2 Comp for average everyday Joe Bloggs driver like me? But we'll answer that throughout this week. In terms of what I've got in front of me, the steering wheel, I know Joe absolutely hates the thickness of this steering wheel, and now having sat in it, it's really, really thick. It's the thickest steering wheel of any car I've ever sat in, so I need to have a think about how I get on with that. But everything else in here is lovely, and as I said, these seats really are. These sculpted holes in the back of the seat just look fantastic. So the plan for this week, I am working away from home this week, and I know we're in lockdown, and for anybody comments, I have a justified and valid reason. We've gone through so many COVID procedures, it's unbelievable, but I am allowed to be travelling this week, and by default I need to get there and I'm going to take the M2 CS. So I am going to do a kind of living with video. I expect I'll probably do about 500 miles this week, so I should have an opportunity to take this car on a range of different roads. I'm going to be really interested to see what it's like on a dual carriageway stroke motorway, because I have heard rumours that these are quite thirsty, and then hopefully I'll find some nice B roads and be able to kind of experience the car. My worries are temperature and rain. I don't think I'm going to be able to push too much, but I will spend quite a bit of time in the car. So I've got about an hour or so before I have to head off, so you can join me for that. But so far, first impressions of this car, oh, it's really good. I like it a lot. Right, we are on our way. Very cold. It's 7 degrees, it's not too bad. Just letting the car warm up. I've got 250 miles ahead of me, and I think that's a really good test to put this car to the test. Could you daily this car? Well, we're going to find out. Okay, 50 miles in and I am on the delight of the M25. I thought there was meant to be a lockdown. There's an awful lot of cars driving around here, and I know I'm one of them. This car cruises, actually, I thought it might rev quite highly because of the way it's geared, but I'm doing 70 miles an hour in 7th gear, top gear, and I'm doing 2000 RPM. So actually it cruises pretty nicely, and the road noise and the wind noise is pretty good as well. Now, so far, my MPG, I'm averaging 28.9. And I think that's probably about as good as I'm going to get, because I am literally just sat with the cruise control on at 70 miles an hour. I'm not accelerating hard or pushing the car or anything. I'm literally just mooching. And in terms of comfort, my bum feels nice and comfy. I don't have a numb bum. I would say though, and this sounds like a really weird thing, this steering wheel is so big and fat, it's actually quite tiring to hold on to. Because you kind of, it's almost like holding a beer can in each hand that's been wrapped in Alcantara. But yes, it is actually, on the motorway, a pretty civilized place. I'm using Waze and Apple CarPlay. What I would say about Apple CarPlay is there's no wireless charger in here, and the only USB charger for my phone is just sticking out of the armrest just here behind the handbrake. And I'm quite worried about resting my elbow on it and damaging the connector, and then I've got a wire going all the way to my phone, and there's nowhere really to put the phone. There is a kind of mat here, but it's not big enough for my phone to sit on, and I think that's a bit messy. It would be quite nice to have a phone holder of sorts. Now I think, and I'm not an expert here, but I think in the M2 CS the armrest that is normally here in the M2 Competition has been removed. I do have a bit of Alcantara to rest my arm on. There's not very much padding here. That is a pretty solid box. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Still got 200 miles to go. Now then, pedallers, as light fades, I have something very important to report. I've managed to average 31.5 miles to the gallon over a distance of 115 miles. Now, I must admit, I've got my cruise control set to 70 miles an hour, so it's hardly the most, I don't know, awe-inspiring and entertaining drive. It's a bit dull, if I'm honest, but it is possible. 31.5. I fear that I might get a little bit less than that when I crack on, but the next thing I'm going to do is report, maybe tomorrow, on some nice tight and twisties, because after all, this car is not about doing long journeys on a dual carriageway or motorway. This car is about having fun down a B road. That's what this car's all about. And then you maybe drive on the B road to a race circuit and spank it, but I don't think I'm going to get the opportunity to do that this week, sadly, because all the race circuits are closed. Anyway, I'll catch you tomorrow. Good morning all. Now, it's probably too dark to actually see me, but I had to run the cameras whilst I'm driving down this road. However, I must admit, right now I am mildly terrified. It is 1 degree, it's rained for the last 2 days, I'm in the hills of Wales, and there's snow all around, runoff on the roads, and every now and again light dustings of snow on the tarmac. Not ideal conditions to be driving an M2 CS on Michelin Cup 2 tyres. That said, had this been a totally stripped out, purely track-based weapon, you wouldn't really conceive of driving down a road like this in it, but it's not. It's a fully equipped road car. It's got all the comforts on it, and therefore you should be able to come down a road like this. Now, I must admit, I am in complete wuss mode. I'm in efficient drivetrain, comfort suspension, comfort steering, and I've got a very light right foot. But look at this. Oh my goodness. What a road. What a morning. This is what this car's all about. I'm breathing on the throttle. I've had a couple of fairly hairy aquaplane moments since I've been driving this car. Quick sit rep. It's now 2 days since the last time I spoke to you, but to be honest, the times I've been in the car, it's been dark or the weather's been very poor. I've not really had the opportunity to do much filming. But it's certainly a car that has so many things I love, but it challenges me in so many ways. Good news, the weather is improving. Now, this car does confuse me a little bit, because in many respects it's not a great deal different from an M2 Competition. I think, had they taken the CS and really stripped it out and made it much lighter, made it much more powerful, so instead of 40 horsepower more, maybe if they made it 100 horsepower more, maybe if they made it even more track focused, just to step it away from the M2 Comp, I would have kind of got the car a little bit more, and I think it would certainly justify the extra price tag, because 25 grand on top of an M2 Comp is a lot. And I honestly think for an average Joe Blogs driver like me, all those extra goodies that you get, the things that make the CS better, are actually quite difficult to put your finger on. I know this car's better, and you put it on a track and you put it in the hands of a really great driver, it is a better car. The sum of its parts are better. On paper it doesn't look that different, but it is. It's a sensational car. I love it to pieces. I think it looks incredible, and having spent a long time now driving it, I honestly love this car. It's brilliant. But I just struggle with justifying that extra amount of money. And I guess where you start to have to go then are the reasons why you would want a CS. I think CS, because it's a limited run and it's a more special car, I think residuals will be much better. It's clearly better bragging rights to say you've got a CS over a Competition. If you're tracking the car or really wanting to exploit its performance, look at this road, by the way, oh my god, then absolutely it's a sensational car, and I get that. But the M2 Comp's a great car as well, and that for me, the other thing about this particular car we're sat in, I've already mentioned how much it costs, but I would instantly take the ceramic brakes off and I'd put a manual gearbox in and save myself 8,000 quid. And I think I'd enjoy the car far more for that. I've not really tapped into needing ceramic brakes, to be honest, although interestingly I drove through some quite deep water yesterday and the brakes really didn't do very much after that for a little while. I had to kind of, the first depress of the brake pedal, nothing happened at all. But let's not detract from the fact that this car's really special. So my filming plans yesterday didn't quite go to plan. The plan was to film a review on the way home after we'd finished work. Unfortunately, I didn't finish work till it had gone dark. However, I then had a 250-mile drive to get home. And that drive taught me everything I need to know about this car. It was an incredible experience. There was a lot of it on the motorway, so I just stuck the car in the comfort settings and it just cruised along. It performed pretty well in terms of MPG, and even though I was tired after a long day, I just felt really comfortable in the car. So in terms of the dailying, the long journeys, you could definitely do this in the car. But then the last 30 or so miles of my journey was along one of my favourite B roads, and honestly I didn't see a single car in best part of 30 miles on one of my favourite B roads. So I put the car into one of the M settings, which basically turned the transmission into sport, the suspension I put in sport, and the steering I put in sport, and it just livened the car up, and I had the most incredible drive. I wasn't pushing on too hard because by that time of the evening it was quite cold. It was only 1 or 2 degrees and there was a little bit of dampness on the road, and I didn't want to push too hard. So I wasn't going that fast, but I just had a sensational drive. The steering's so sharp, this DCT gearbox, the changes are so crisp. The suspension was able to soak up all the bumps, and I just felt like I was sat in a really, really sorted car. And that for me is what this car is all about. It is an incredibly well sorted car. It looks great from the outside, but when you get it on a road, you don't have to be driving that fast. Don't get me wrong, if the conditions are right and the road is right, you can really, really crack on in this car. It is unbelievably fast. However, I've not really been able to do that this week because the road and the weather conditions have been appalling. We've had a really bad storm blow through the UK this week, torrential rain, and it's now super cold. So it's currently -1. And on Cup 2s in -1, believe me, you have a gentle application of the throttle. But I get it, and I think for me, in summary of this car, I found it a really interesting week because I'm quite conflicted about this car. There's a huge part of me utterly loves it. I love the way it looks, and now having had that drive last night rather, I love the way it drives. It is brilliant. I do struggle with the price tag. I think an M2 Competition for me and for most drivers would be more than enough car. However, I now understand that extra bit that the CS gives you. It's got the kudos and the cachet of being a CS. It's got that, maybe the residuals, the desirability of being a CS that makes it worth that extra bit. But the sum of its parts makes this car very special. For me though, I wouldn't have the carbon ceramic brakes, I've mentioned that already, and I would have the manual gearbox. Good as this DCT is, I just prefer that engagement. That drive last night at the slower speeds I think would have been even more engaging, even more fun had I had a manual 6-speed to play with. And I know some of you aren't a big fan, and actually if you're living with this car, probably an auto box in traffic conditions and all those types of things, it's probably a better gearbox to have. But for me, that driver engagement, that connection with the car, you only get with a manual. And to be able to spec a performance car like this with a manual is a rare thing, and a thing that I don't think is going to be around for that long. So take advantage of it, spec it as a manual, and enjoy 3 pedals, enjoy the extra technique that you need to really get the most out of the car. But I have to say a massive thank you to BMW UK for letting me have this car for a week. Oh man, it's slippy this morning. And a big thank you to BOTB for sponsoring the video as well. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I know it's been a little bit different, hampered a lot by the weather and by a slightly different working week than I had planned in terms of the video I had planned in my head, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. I'd love to know your thoughts on the M2 Competition versus M2 CS. I think this is one of the best cars BMW make, and I'd even go further than that and say it's probably one of the best cars BMW have ever made. And I would love one. I've got quite a hankering for an M2 Competition now. I really love them. I think they're super practical cars, and I really, really want one now. Yeah. Oh. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm going to enjoy my favourite road, although I had to come out very quickly this morning to film this before the car gets collected, and it's not really ideal conditions because it's proper sketchy out there. Next time some winter tyres would be far better, and I'd get to understand the car and enjoy the car far more. If you're going to daily one of these through the winter, stick some winters on it. Don't try and do it on Cup 2s. But I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next film.